strategies succeed again? Because it's been working. Is he going to be able to reverse the Iowa polls by going on the attack? Here with me, former Bush campaign advisor Mark Serrano and liberal radio talk show host Leslie Marshall. Good to have both you guys here. Mark, what do you think? Does this tactic work? Can you go on the attack and turn the conversation on its head so you don't need to necessarily provide lots of policy details?
Well, yeah. So first of all, if you take a look at Jeb Bush has released all sorts of policy plans, and where is he in the polls? Rick Santorum has released a lot of policy plans. Who knows anything about them? So this is not hurting Trump at all. I think Trump represents a theme. He represents an approach, a no BS approach, frankly. No, not being politically correct. That appeals to voters a lot more than details. And frankly, if you take a look at his tax plan, there are a lot of details there, and it received a lot of praise from very, very credible third-party sources.
I got to point that out that, you are right in that sense that I've been frustrated because we don't actually have tax plans from all the candidates that are on stage right now. And he has been one of the few that has come forward with one. I mean, we're still waiting on a tax plan from Hillary Clinton. She hasn't told us, other than wanting to tax the rich and as much as she possibly can. We don't really know specifics as to what brackets she wants to put forward. So in that sense, yes, he has provided something. But I wonder, Leslie, does he know to a certain extent that Americans, they don't necessarily want to get bogged down in all the intricacies of trade deals and tax policies. It's so much more fun to watch him pick on Marco Rubio for, sweating as much as he does, which was one of the comments Trump made there in Florida. And he said, gee, the guy needs a lot of water, referring, of course, to that water incident in the State of the Union where Marco Rubio went and grabbed a sip and said that, he needs a lot of water. He sweats so much. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Americans say, yeah, he's right. He's talking my language. I can hang out with him.
I don't know if it's all Americans or voters, but certainly Trump supporters. And that with his rhetoric and his sound bites, which definitely work best, the fiction, if you will, and the fun over the facts with his audience. But if they turn into voters and turn out to vote for him in Iowa, it would seem whenever the cameras are rolling and Trump attacks somebody, whether it is a Mexican, a Muslim, a Democrat, Hillary, Ben Carson, he definitely gets attention and he gets a bump in the polls. And that's what he's doing because he knows it's worked for him. I don't know how long that'll play out in the future. The serious voters are going to need some serious specifics regarding policy from all candidates, him included. But right now, I think it might get him a further advantage over Ben Carson. And he's obviously a bit worried, and that's why he's attacking that right now.
You mentioned that he might be worried. I think he might be a little bit right. I don't know if worried is the right word. Perhaps annoyed could be it, because this is a guy who obviously wants to be number one at everything. And look, I think that people have some admiration for that because they want a president who is a winner and a success story. But here he is, guys, talking about the Iowa Trump polls and trying to shrug them off.
I don't believe I did fall behind. It was one poll and a second poll. It was small polls. And I was in Iowa 3 days ago. We had a town hall that was unbelievable. It was packed. Thousands of people standing outside.
One poll's the Des Moines Register. Another's Quinnipiac, which you've said is a good poll.
Well, the Des Moines Register is a terrible paper as far as I'm concerned. But no, it really is.
What about Quinnipiac?
Very liberal paper, by the way. I believe, and I've been winning in Iowa. And by the way, I have other polls in Iowa that say I am winning, just so you understand. This was 2 small polls.
One of the things you got to appreciate about the guy is it's always somebody else's fault, right? I have a 3-year-old, by the way, like that. It's always somebody else's fault. If he bumps into the wall shouldn't have been there. But, I think that it's somewhat telling. Every single time he does stumble in some way, it's not his fault. At what point does he need, Mark, to start taking ownership for some of the negative stuff out there? Or would you say Americans kind of like it? Because, again, they want a guy who wants to win. And he's like the coach who's a big believer in the country and says, I'm going to fix stuff. And they like that. I mean, how do those two positions play out in your view?
This is style over substance, Trish. American voters, as we've seen for months now, with Trump atop of the polls for many months, they are so sick and tired of the Beltway establishment political class. They want somebody who's going to fight for their interests. They're so much more focused on someone who's going to show fight as opposed to show details. And what Trump's been very successful at doing is not being allowed to be fixed into a box, painted into a box. And frankly, the mainstream news media, the establishment, the political class, they all have these expectations. You check off these boxes about polling. You check off these boxes about whether the media accepts you or not, whether you have enough detail. And Trump is obliterating those conventions, those preconceived notions.
He
right?
sure is. I mean, look, I thought he would really have a tough time recovering from what he said about John McCain. And it just didn't matter.
That was months ago now.
Exactly. Stick with me, guys. We got a lot to cover here.